Hello and welcome to IABM TV. I'm Lorenzo Zanni, research analyst at IABM. I'm joined today by Sam Bogoch, CEO at Axel Video, and Ed Haslam, CMO at Conviva. And we're going to talk about artificial intelligence and analytics in the media entertainment sector. So let me start with Sam. Could you describe a little bit what's your product about, what's its application in the media entertainment industry, and how AI makes it better? I know that you've recently launched Axel
Sure.
AI, and I wanted
Exactly.
to know a little bit more about that.
Super. Thanks for asking. So Axel AI is really entirely focused on the media and entertainment industry, although we do have customers in corporate and universities and even houses of worship, for instance. So it's a broad definition of the entertainment business. But basically what we do is we make it possible for people to search their video without having to do a lot of tagging work, and we use artificial intelligence to achieve that.
Okay, very good. What about the application of Conviva's platform in the media entertainment industry? I know you've recently launched a new product as well, the AI video alerts.
Yeah, so Conviva has a unique and new architecture for the measurement and analytics of what we like to call the next generation of TV. So we work with large OTT, over-the-top video publishers such as HBO, Sky, NBC, CBS, and many others, about 200 global brands, to help them better understand the consumer quality of experience while the video is playing back. And what's unique about that is we're collecting that telemetry data or that playback experience data in the client itself. So we're collecting things like rebuffering ratio, video start time, and then we're processing it in real time on what we call a video AI platform. It's a cloud service that we run on behalf of our publishers that they have then a dashboard into where they get very unique insights into the data we're collecting from that playback experience.
Okay, very good. And obviously, artificial intelligence is new. It's still considered an emerging technology in the media entertainment industry. What do you think about the state of adoption and the challenges to its adoption and the speed at which you think media companies will adopt it?
So today, I would say the rate of adoption is there's a lot of excitement, but it's starting from almost zero. Most media companies just have a passing kind of awareness of AI technology. And part of it is because AI wasn't really very good until a few years ago. So for the first 50 or 60 years of AI, it really had no application in the media space. But because of all the recent work that's being done at the major research centers and at places like Google and Microsoft and Amazon, suddenly the kind of bones are there to do huge and powerful things with AI, and everyone's kind of waking up to it all at once. So obviously Axel AI is a great tool, and we see our piece of that puzzle, but in the broader industry, we think that over the next 5 years, adoption is going to be almost universal, because you won't be able to compete unless you have this additional information about not only your media, but your audience, and at various stages of the post-production and then content consumption chain. So it'd be like flying blind, essentially, not to have this tool at your disposal. And in a sense, that's what broadcasters are doing today, but there's no excuse 2 or 3 years from now for not having this information.
Yeah, to echo what Sam said, I think AI has been around for a very long time in various forms, and what's the unique new opportunity as it relates to media today is the data available around media consumption. So there's an unprecedented amount of data being collected from the consumption and playback of media or video. Google was an early pioneer in this, in voice recognition and collecting all the data there. They also have been doing a lot in video, much like Axel AI does. I'm sure you're different and unique.
We actually partner with Google.
Okay.
So we're not going to compete with those guys. They have a bigger engineering team than we do.
Yes, exactly. But it's the fact that consumers are now watching so much video on devices that are capable of capturing the data. And why data is important is because the aspect of AI that's caught on the most is what's known as machine learning. And machine learning is only as good as the amount of data you have to train the machine learning algorithm. And so, as I mentioned earlier, Conviva is collecting an enormous amount of data. We see over 1 billion video viewing hours per month from our clients. We have 2.5 billion sensors deployed in playback devices around the world, which is just an unprecedented amount of video playback data coming in. And as that data flows through the system, the algorithms that process it get smarter, right? And that's where the AI is, and therefore that media now, with more and more of their viewership or their audience being on data capture capable devices, means that there are these new applications arising and new insights that can come out of that.
Yeah, thanks for that. And about that, you mentioned before cloud technology, and obviously, do you think that cloud technology is would be an enabler of course, for more data available.
Not only more data, but also more crunching power to process the data. So both on the audience side and in our case, on the content side itself, people can talk routinely now about hundreds of terabytes or even petabytes of material. That was very difficult to do 5 or 10 years ago. It's becoming routine, and then you need a huge amount of computing power to plow through all that media or all those audience numbers and come up with some conclusions, like on Tuesdays this plays particularly well, or on that reality show shoot the arguments happen more often in the evenings, or whatever it's going to do. You need both the raw data, lots of it, and then the processing capabilities, and the cloud has made all of these things much more dynamically available.
Yeah, and at almost that commodity-like pricing as well. Right. If you look at what Google's doing with their services, AWS obviously in the market for a long time. Microsoft.
Yeah, we just announced with Microsoft here at the show.
Tremendous amount of CPU capabilities available. You can spin it up on demand as traffic surges and falls. It's almost like a utility. Right, there was a thing a decade ago about utility-based computing, and really the cloud is in the instantiation.
It happened, definitely.
And that's the other enabling, is the ability to process that data in a meaning. And I think the thing that's often not talked about is processing it in real time, right? Because if you have infinite amount of time to process the data and do post-mortem analysis, there's a lot you can do. But where the rubber hits the road is when those analytics and those insights that come out of AI need to be made available in near real time. That creates new demands on infrastructure and cloud processing that I do think is unique and new.
Yeah.
And what do you think about the predictive nature of it? Is it as important? Is it important for?
Well, it depends on the application. In our application, basically it's the fact that people have way more footage than they can possibly watch or understand. So they rely on AI to kind of dig into that and find them the good stuff. In just one example, last week at the US Open, IBM did essentially a highlights generator that would go through all the footage of the day's matches and find the most exciting points based on the amount of crowd noise, the length of the point, et cetera, using the IBM Watson technology. And they're another example in this space. So essentially, there's not much predictive value there, but there's a huge amount of, recent update value. You would have needed a team of maybe 50 people to watch those highlights to find that stuff, and instead of having 50 human beings, you just had a bunch of CPUs somewhere crunching away. So we focus more on that side. I think you probably can talk more to the predictive side.
Yeah, so in our latest product that released called Video AI Alerts, and Video AI Alerts are a detection and diagnosis. And we like to classify the AI algorithms for our purpose built around video into detection, diagnosis, and prediction. Right? So Video AI Alerts are detection and diagnosis, which is how do you use machine learning to detect an anomaly, to know, let's say that it's abnormal, Lorenzo, for you to get 0.5% rebuffering versus everybody else, and that's an anomaly. That's a constantly evolving machine learning algorithm that's detecting anomalies. Then the second thing is to then say to the provider like HBO, who we did the press release with, that Lorenzo's problem of rebuffering is related to this problem. And that's diagnosis of what caused the anomaly. It could be their CDN, it could be a latest release of software in the client, it could be an ISP to CDN peering point. And that diagnosis of the problem, again, requires artificial intelligence to look through the space of possible sources of the problem, remove it down to a source set, and then give that insight to the operators of the service. Prediction, though, becomes when the algorithm actually detects a set of circumstances on the internet or in the playback experience that tells HBO that you're about to have a rebuffering issue and to do something about that. And that's really going to be the next generation for us of what we call video AI alerts, getting into the actual predictive capabilities.
Okay, thank you very much. And I wanted to ask you as well, what do you think about the categories of workloads in media workloads in which AI could have most impact? Obviously, you are more focused on user experience and well, you are more focused on content management. Do you think it will have an impact on all the supply chain in media?
I suspect so. I can definitely speak to the supply chain, and we think it'll have a massive impact there.
Yeah.
We're probably a little bit biased, but I think, you know, if you just come by our booth at the show, we've been mobbed every day. Because on the content side, every single, I mean, I've been to major broadcasters who bring in tens of thousands of hours per year, and they can't find anything. One of my customers back a few years ago said, you know, they were lucky if they had a start time and a file name for each of the files that they bring in. No further metadata in many cases. They're a little bit better today, but not much. So it's going to have a huge impact throughout that post-production world. And then to your side, I'm sure you can see that.
Yeah. No, I think, you know, we have been doing a purest data scientist would say this is a correlative model, which isn't really AI, but I'm a marketing guy, so I can say it's AI. But we take experience data constantly and look at situations where you can predict whether somebody will stop watching based on a set of circumstances, and that notion of connecting quality of experience to engagement and how long somebody watches. Then take it to the next level and say, I'm looking at engagement levels, I can start to predict whether somebody will churn from the service. They'll drop their subscription. Or you can do the opposite and try to predict this person who's on a trial membership, their viewing levels and viewing behaviors fit in a cohort of similar like viewing behaviors that are most likely to convert. So that informs marketing programs and decisions around how you treat each of those respective audience members or subscribers or potential subscribers, which then gets you into the marketing side of the business, not out of the operation. So that's more into the workflow or the business use cases where artificial intelligence can really help next generation media companies. It's an interesting analogy in our world of media where next generation media companies, especially the big advertising sponsored broadcasters, they're going to have to stop thinking of their viewers as an audience and start thinking about them as people and subscribers, and having one-to-one relationships with them, not just demographic-based relationships and audience selling and advertising. And I think AI can also help there, where you transcend the just generic demographic model into this is a person who fits into a cohort of people who are a certain subscriber type to my content, and I should treat them in a different way.
Thank you. And of course, AI tools are very advanced. What do you think about making them usable and simple for employees in media companies? Is this a very important characteristics for AI-based
It's
product?
massive. I mean, in fact, if you look at what our product does, it takes a lot of the horsepower that's available from these different vendors and from some fairly obscure vendors that, you know, just write algorithms, and brings it all into what we call a radically simple user interface. So it's just a browser view of all your media. You can just do easy English language searches, type in a name, see what it finds, and you can even do comparative searches where you can, for instance, select an image or a subclip and say, find me all of the other footage that looks like this clip. So very powerful tool sets that the challenge is not that whether they exist. They do exist, and they're getting better every couple of months. It's funneling all that power into a usable form where a typical, editor, assistant editor, producer can take advantage of it.
Yeah, I think it also is related to whether the media company has its own data science team or not.
Yeah.
Right. So we have many customers who have large data science teams that actually want very granular, low-level data feeds that are very hard and arcane to understand, and models and interface with our models through APIs or programming interfaces. So that class it's not very user-friendly. It's actually very arcane and sophisticated. But then there are other media companies that are like, I don't need a data science team. I want to outsource that. I just want the insights and the business intelligence I get from AI. In which case, I would agree with Sam. They just want a nice UI. They want to be able to correlate or combine those insights with other insights in other systems. So fitting them into workflows and processes in their business systems today just means you need to fit into the sort of next generation of software as a service, UIs and interfaces.
Yeah. So also on the customer, of course, the customer segment is very important. Last question, of course, like next generation media players like Netflix and Amazon are really experienced with these platforms, and they make data analytics the art of their strategy. Do you think that traditional broadcaster will be able to fill the gap in the future, or kind of?
Well, yeah, oddly enough, we use the metaphor that we help traditional media companies become like next generation internet media companies, right? If you look at like a Google or a Netflix, they started as technology companies that had one-to-one relationships with consumers, knew how to process and store that data, and now they're starting to become content companies, either through crowdsourcing or through original content funding. But then you look at the media companies, they are the opposite. They're experts at creating content, but they aren't experts at processing data, and they look for partnerships with companies like Conviva to do that for them. So I think with next generation partnerships and relationships, they can become more like some of those other companies. And I think that's the big unknown in media, is it going to be content first, technology second? Or is it technology first and content second? Or will they be on par?
I would have one other question that's unanswered, which is, and we certainly hope that it works out well for our customers, which is that tools like Axle AI can also help democratize the content creation process. Because up until now, you had to be YouTube or Netflix to have all this data about your content, and the average guy that was just going out and shooting a show, you think of, for instance, the 700 or so suppliers for Discovery. Each one of them is an independent production team. Yeah. It's all they can do to just capture the video, get it onto some hard drives, and ship it somewhere. And so, to a large extent, they haven't been able to mine that data or really repurpose it in any way. So we're hoping that bringing these tools down to the level of the small and mid-sized teams will democratize it and make it possible for corporate video teams, sports video teams, universities, etc., to have access to a lot of the production power that the big guys have.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Sam. Thank you very much, Ed. We come to the end of this panel session. Thank you.